So, okay, speaking of launches or relaunches, the Chancellor announced her spring statement yesterday. What actually happened? What was new? Wasn't a budget, so she wasn't supposed to make any big changes, but a massive £6.4 billion has been cut from health and disability benefits by 2030. More than 3 million families will lose out financially, especially those on universal credit. Another 3.8 million families are set to be better off. Two other things. The watchdog, the OBR, has made some fresh predictions, and shockingly, this came out during the speech yesterday. They think that growth in the economy is not going to be 2%, it's only going to be 1%. And they warn the tax burden is set to hit another record high in the next few years. I will just show you our front pages before we get to our panel, because they are obviously full of it. And actually, this, if you're Rachel Reeves, look away now, okay, because this is not pretty reading. The Mail says she is deluded because she said she'd restore growth and it hasn't happened. The Telegraph says we're going to be overtaxed for the whole of our lives. The Times gives her alibi, which is that Donald Trump's tariffs, etc., Ukraine, has all added to the bill. The Mirror, now the Mirror is pro-Labour paper, but balancing the books on the backs of the poor. So it's taken a quote from the head of the TUC, which is anti-Reeves. Reeves accused of austerity on stilts is the Scotsman. The I paper saying tax rises on the way, which is everyone's conversation now, really. Reeves accused of balancing the books at the expense of the poor. Again, that's the benefits policy. Express reckless Rachel tanks the economy by killing growth. So they've got it all. It's all there. I've taken a bit of time with that because, oh my goodness, Paulette, she can't last, can she?
Well, it's not for me to say, I'm a backbench MP, but what I can say is I am really concerned by the proposals that have come out. But let us not forget, we came in 7 months ago and the economy was in a mess. The Conservatives absolutely and utterly destroyed the economy. What Rachel has tried to do is reverse some of those overspends. She's tried to put the economy back on the straight and narrow, but some of the departments within government, that the money that should have been spent, they weren't signing off checks, they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. We've had to take some of the really, really difficult decisions.
Yeah, you did. She did say, when she was asked, how are you going to pay for this and that? And one thing, just a tiny example, everyone will have access to an NHS dentist, right? That's one of the promises. How are you going to pay for it? Growth.
Yeah.
And growth was the answer to everything. And growth isn't happening.
At the moment. Growth isn't happening at the moment. But if you remember, we've had leaders in the past where when they came in, things were really terrible. Margaret Thatcher, and I don't like to call her name. But after a little bit, things did go on the up and up. So my view is, we're 7 months in, I have to say to you, it does look very bleak at the moment.
Well, if it's Thatcherism you're bringing in, let us know.
No, I am not.
Let us know.
I am absolutely not bringing in Thatcherism. But what I'm saying is, sometimes things look really bad at the beginning, and they can be turned around.
Well, there we are.
And I believe our government will turn things around.
OK, Guto, because it's really hard for Conservatives like you, Guto, because 14 years of chaos, that's what we're always told.
Well, they weren't all chaotic, but, we're not going to revisit all of that now. But the assault on growth was actually engineered by Rachel. She took decisions that actively discouraged the very thing she was trying to talk up. And some of the decisions, the national insurance hikes, haven't actually happened yet. They've killed confidence. But from next week, it'll actually be in every pay packet of every small business, and that will really hit. And charities and GP surgeries and museums.
We're talking here about the employer's national insurance
contribution. Yeah. So that is going to hit really badly. And so the very thing that's at the heart of what we do need, which is to encourage growth, is something she has actually discouraged.
OK, but you sorry, I'm bracketing you in with the party you used to work for, but Conservatives generally want the books to balance.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got money from tax, you either put the taxes up, which I'm guessing you're not in favour of, or you cut spending.
Yeah.
And that's what she's doing.
And so she's absolutely right to take very unpopular and bold but vital decisions to cut from the biggest budget two biggest things that we spend more money on than we spend on job creation, education, transport, infrastructure, energy, defense, all these super important things are dwarfed by the spending on welfare benefits and dwarfed by what it costs to be that overdrawn. So if you're a household, you wouldn't want to spend more on paying off your credit card interest every month than you spend on your kids' education or their food or their sport.
This is a weird thing that's happened, Paulette, where, and it's kind of technical, but it's fascinating. We borrow a lot of money, and the cost of borrowing has gone up because Germany, because of Trump, needs to spend money on defense. They've decided to borrow tons of money. They're a better bet than we are. So we have to pay more for the money we borrow compared to what we were paying a year ago. So the Trump backwash is hitting everything. And as a result, we're paying, what is it, 100 billion a year in interest.
Twice what we spend on defence.
But she'll blame you for that. Paulette will blame you for that, by the way. It's their fault, right?
What I would say is, what Rachel did that I did admire, when she came in, she said, look, we are not going to borrow above a certain amount. What she then did, she's working within a fiscal envelope.
She is, yeah.
And what she's trying to do, which is good housekeeping, is keep within that fiscal envelope. The problem she now has is the growth she's talked about, we're not sure how much of that we will see going forward. But what I'm saying is things could change as we go along. You have to look. I actually agree with Guido. The welfare bill is just too high. When you've got 16, 18-year-olds, 1 in 8 of our young people that are going straight onto benefits.
I don't get it.
We had to look.
I don't get it. I mean, I never had the option when I was 18.
Well, nor was I.
Well, you didn't say you could have a job. Or if you want, that was not an option. Peter's in Wolverhampton. What do you think, Peter?
Well, you're asking if it's a betrayal, and I think the rot set in when Rachel Reeves said last year that Labour is not here to represent people who are out of work, and she's proved that now.
Well, but hang on a minute. She's sensible saying that, isn't she? Because unless she encourages people who are in work, we don't even have an economy.
Well, we have an economy, because we generate productivity. It doesn't matter whether you're in work or out of work.
Well, it does, doesn't it? I mean, you can't be productive if you haven't got a job.
Well, AI is supposed to be producing a whole new culture in which we don't need workers.
Oh, OK. Well, we just print money or something. I mean, what does the future hold then? Because it's not working for us at the moment, is it?
Well, you don't have to work in order for the economy to be productive. But the point is that Labour's supposed to represent the out of work, because who else have we got? OK, Peter, thank you. After the break, we'll take more calls on this. Loads of people calling on whether Labour have betrayed their voters, or maybe, as Paulette says, it's early days here. It's a matter of months since they came in. Give us a call now with your thoughts, especially if you voted Labour. Chancellor made her big spring statement yesterday, and this is how the shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, responded.
She is the Chancellor who said she would not increase borrowing, but she did. She said she wouldn't change her fiscal rules, but she did. She said she wouldn't put up national insurance, but she did. She said she wouldn't cut winter fuel payment, but she did. She said she wouldn't tax farmers, but she did. And she said she would not move to more than one fiscal event a year, and she just has. And now we are all paying the price of her broken promises.
Well, let's just look a bit more closely at Mr. Stride. The one thing we know, he always seems to have his shirt untucked, by the way, whenever he appears in public. But he's the Chancellor now, and if we put him in a judge's get-up, we can launch our little analysis of his words. So, Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride, sitting in judgment on Rachel Reeves there. Did Judge Stride get the verdict right? That's the question. Let's just look a bit closer, then we can discuss this, because he really threw everything at her, including the kitchen sink. So he pointed out that the OBR, which is this Office of Budget Responsibility, said the finances are £14 billion worse than expected at the last budget in the autumn. The Honourable Lady said she would bring stability. Actually, this has brought her to a cold, hard reckoning. Now, he made a lot of the fact that she said Ukraine and Trump a lot. The world has changed, and therefore her numbers have changed. He says, yeah, sure, it's changed. This country was growing at the fastest rate in the G7 a year ago under the Conservatives. Growth has now been halved. And he said business confidence has crashed to the floor. And this goes back to the thing that Guto was saying about this employer national insurance rise, which is one of the tax rises they had not made a promise on at the general election, so they were able to actually do it. And that is blamed by employers for a lack of hiring at the moment. So that was part of it. Bit more from Mel Stride, the judge. Here we go. He said, and it got quite personal. She tours the TV studios telling people they should be thankful she will not ramp up taxes. Actually, taxes are at its highest burden since the end of the Second World War, destroying livelihoods, crushing enterprise, ineptitude. He said she was fiddling the figures at one point, and the speaker stood up and said, wait a second, you can't say the word fiddling. So inflation down to 2% on the day of the last general election is now going to be twice the level of the forecast last year. So prices, and by the way, unemployment as well. He threw the kitchen sink at her, Paulette. Were you in the Commons?
I was, but I couldn't get in. It was so full, so I ended up going back to my office and watching it on telly.
But how did you feel for Rachel Reeves, or did you think this guy's got a point?
I thought he had a cheek, considering the Conservatives had been there for 14 years. And if they were there for a year longer, some of these decisions they would have had to make. And at the end of the day, they're standing there as if all high and almighty. And they haven't done what they were meant to do when they were in power. I have to be honest with you. Some of the things around welfare reform, we do need to look at it closely, but it is a green paper. And at the end of the day, people like the backbenchers, we will have the opportunity to question the government on a lot of what's going on.
We're getting some, one or two Labour backbenchers. Corbyn is one. Obviously, you'd expect that. But people just coming forwards and saying, we don't like this. And they've got such a big majority, there'll never be an effective rebellion. But it's interesting when you start to see discontent behind the Prime Minister.
Yeah, and it's fatal. He's got enough. He's got the numbers at the moment, but it's very, very painful for a Labour government to do this. But in a way, see, if Conservatives had did this, you'd be merciless about it. And it's almost the old adage that the only person who can make peace with a long-standing enemy is the brutal general who's killed more of them than anyone else. Because when he says this has to be done, people believe him. And you almost have to have a Labour government to cut welfare, because if Tories do it, there's sort of riots on the street. Labour MPs will basically fall in line. They'll be very unhappy about it. It's the right thing to do, though.
OK, Elaine is in London. Was Judge Stride right with his verdict on Rachel Reeves?
Hello?
Hi, Elaine, how are you?
All right, well, so.
Oh, yeah, is it a difficult day?
Well, I live in pain, love, so that's why.
OK, so you're watching the spring statement, and I'm guessing the pain got a bit worse, did it?
You could say that.
Well, what do you think of it?
I think it's terrible. They've given us lies after lies.
What's the biggest lie, do you think?
Well, beforehand they were going to help pensioners. I'm a 77-year-old pensioner. They were going to help us. They haven't. All she's doing is hitting the poor, the pensioners and the disabled. She talks about getting them back into work. How can she get them back into work when the people are being made redundant because of the situations? And she's talking about getting people back into work. My biggest point is, us pensioners are sitting under blankets. Why should the taxpayer pay for MPs to have their energy bills paid?
Right, well, this comes up a lot, yeah.
Houses while we're sitting under blankets.
All right, Elaine, thank you. I might come to Paulette if we get lots of calls. The MP's pay rise, was that recent, that MP's pay rise? We got people calling in about it yesterday. I think it was this week.
Have we had it? I don't know, because I've not been paid yet. So
Okay, all right.
I
think it's the worst timed pay rise in history. Rita on Merseyside, what do you think of what Labour's doing?
Oh, good morning to you and the panel. I think it's disgusting what Labour is doing. In the first 3 months when they came to power, they've done a whole lot of worse, much more damage than the Conservatives could ever do. And I never thought I would hear the day when I would say that. The lady been on before is just right about the pensioners and everything else, knocking off the winter fuel. But the things in this country that matter to Labour voters, they've just gone back on every single thing they've said. And a lot of a big part of the problem in this country is it's too much spent on foreigners, housing them, interpreters for them. You know, it's basically, no one likes to say it, especially on this show, but only Carol will speak up. But it's
We
true.
do, honestly, Rita, I promise, it came up yesterday. It's an ongoing difficulty, to say the least, for a lot of people. Well, Guto, you should comment on this. We have a lot of people saying, how is it that if you come on a small boat illegally, you're put up in a fancy hotel, but if you live here and you run out of money, you're put on the streets?
Yeah, there are choices that have to be made at the heart of government. And if you actually default to spending 300 billion on welfare, there's less money for other stuff. And if you default to sort of giving, you know, a very comfortable welcome pack, let's put it like that, to somebody who crosses the channel illegally, that's less money for people who are already here. And one of the things that the government have done in the last couple of weeks is said that they will deport people at the end of the legal process. That means if you land here illegally, you can spin it out for years and be put up in accommodation and be given money and have a pretty comfortable life for years while your lawyers are fighting.
You said you were going to smash the gangs, and it never... Did you actually believe that? It was never going to happen, Paulette, was it? Smashing the gangs.
Well, all I can say is when we came in, the Conservatives have spent 700 million trying to sort out the Rwanda scheme. As far as I know, only 4 volunteers actually went to Rwanda. Yeah. So they had a pretty hard time.
Because the courts stopped the scheme being implemented. The courts and people like Keir Starmer stopped it being implemented.
The Labour Party have sent more people home than anybody. And at the moment, they need to have a proper strategy in place, which I can agree that there isn't a clear strategy.
We had more people in the start of this year than we had at the start of last year when you weren't in power. Roy in Wolverhampton, hi.
Hello. My opinion is it's the freeloaders, including the MP, who's causing all this, because they didn't really need that extra rise. But just take, for instance, my area. There's 8 houses in our cul-de-sac. We got 5 pensioners, 1 empty house, 2 workers. Now that can't work out, can it? How can them 2 people keep paying us pensions?
Do you know, that's the most interesting, that's almost a little, we could do a little graphic on that, couldn't we? Because that's not quite how the country is. It's basically 50% of workers are in private employment and 50% either are in the public sector or not working. But you're right, Roy, the numbers are not looking good. But so what does Labour need to do that they're not doing, Roy?
Well, it needs to get everybody doing something. You know, we've got enough office staff unemployed now to administer to all the unemployed in areas so that they all have to report somewhere in the morning, you know. And I believe that's the only way to sort it out. And any young uns between 18 and 30 who haven't worked for 6 months, put them in the army.
Yeah, well, I mean, we feel a bit sorry always feel sorry for decent British soldiers. The idea that the army can be a kind of like a waste bin for people who can't work, Roy. Seriously?
Well, I spent 12 years in the army, and in some ways I agree. But if you talk to the national servicemen, who will tell you it was a terrible time for them, but it was the best time of their lives once they finished.
OK, fair enough. Put them in the army. Thank you, Roy. After the break, more calls, loads of calls on this. More calls on whether Labour has betrayed its voters. It's now your calls on whether Labour has betrayed its voters. So many people getting in touch. On Facebook, got Jane writing to say this: we've always associated Labour with higher taxes, and those who voted for them probably didn't consider where the money would come from to deliver on the promises being made. Gina in London, is this Labour government a letdown?
Good morning. I wouldn't say they were let down. I would say the last government is to blame for everything, and this government is trying to make things right. But I think they're targeting the wrong people. They're targeting the vulnerable, because people on benefits, you know, people are always saying they're getting too much money. I think the odd few, you know, are scamming the system, but the majority of people, you know, people don't get a lot of money on benefits. So to say they're going to half it, they're putting people, you know, vulnerable people at risk.
Yeah, so, I mean, their argument is that they can't pay money out unless it's coming in tax. So how do they pay money? How does the government pay money out that it doesn't have? That's the question. I don't know the answer, Gina.
Well, this country, you know, you're living on tax because we're paying tax for everything. We're paying council tax.
Oh, yeah.
We're paying, we're paying tax on food.
Breathing.
Everything is on tax. We're paying employment tax.
Yep.
And so what else can we do? We're
I don't know.
paying tax on every single thing. So
Well,
what is the government doing with the money? You have to look at the last government because they are the ones who squandered the money.
Okay,
And
Gina,
so
thank
now
you. Thanks so much. Yeah, that point's been made, and I do take it. You could do three things. You can raise taxes, you can cut spending, or you can borrow. She doesn't want to borrow. She's made promises in the election campaign not to raise taxes, so she has got one tool in the locker here, which is to cut spending. But then in addition to that, she's got to put more money into the army because of Ukraine. So it's not fun being a government minister these days in any party. Jennifer in Lancashire, has she messed it up?
Big time, yeah. The three of them are a gang of liars.
Okay, we hear a lot of people saying they're liars. Why do you say they're liars?
Well, about, this big black hole she's found.
Well,
You tell me you've got to have money coming in before you can pay out. Why is it giving billions and billions overseas? You can't even look after their own people in this country. I've watched programs on television about the homeless. And it's scandalous. They're putting migrants up in proper posh hotels.
There we go again. Yeah, it just comes up all the time, Paulette. You're going to have to find a solution to this thing. People are being driven nuts by this hotels thing.
I hear what the caller is saying and I hear what you're saying, but we will go back to the welfare system. The welfare system does need reforming. I think the problem has been for too long people have procrastinated, and since COVID, the welfare bill has gone up and up and up. And as a country, we spend £1.2 trillion, and we have to ensure that the money we're spending it appropriately.
Well,
and
you've got the biggest majority. You could do anything. You could do
and
anything.
This is why I feel at this moment in time, remember, anybody who needs their benefits, what the government are saying is you will not lose your benefits. I am worried that people will slip through the net. And that's where, because this is a green paper and we're consulting on it, this is where I think we need to ask the difficult questions.
Okay.
But what the caller is saying, we have to sort our budget out. If you live in a house and you have £1,000 and you are spending £2,500 every week, you will soon lose your house.
Yeah, no, listen, I tell all my friends that, my friends who study economics, they say, no, Jeremy, that's not how it works. You've listened to Thatcher too much. Because Thatcher used to do this whole thing of, you just said what Thatcher said, which is you can't spend money you haven't got. Yeah. And anyone who has a mortgage knows you definitely can spend money you haven't got. And this government has a massive mortgage. Barry has written on Facebook and said Labour has not betrayed their voters as they are the party of workers and are going to make people work for their money. They need to go further. So you may think they haven't gone far enough on benefits. Brian is in Newport. Hi, Brian.
Hello.
Hello. Do you think they've gone far enough on benefits? Let's start there.
I think they've gone too far. I think they've gone back on everything they've said. They're supposed to be the party for the people. And I'd like to ask the Labour MP a question.
Sure.
When they voted for what I think is absolutely disgusting, to tax the hospices for dying children, and Starmer made them vote for it. Now, none of them have got the backbone to stand up and say, well, wait there, don't you think this is wrong? And now it's going to be for disabled people. Now, how will she... When Starmer says, you will vote this, that lady there is all concerned and saying, oh, well, I'm concerned about this. It's a green paper. But if Starmer says, you will vote it, she will vote it.
So hang on,
now,
let me just be clear. Wait a second, Brian, this is getting unclear. You're talking about a hospital for dying children, which has to pay more on its wages,
not hospital.
Hospice, because of your employer's tax thing, which has gone up for costs for everyone, including the NHS.
Can I say to Brian from Newport, I actually chair the hospice group in Parliament, the APPG, and we were given, as the hospice service, over £100 million to give to the hospice service in the last few months. So what Labour has done is not only have they realised that the hospice movement needed more support, they've actually put their money where their mouth is.
It's now more expensive to employ people. That's the point Brian's making.
I know, but we've also, in the next week, the OBR has actually said many people will be £500 better off. So many people will be better off with some of the changes that are being made at the moment.
Okay.
So I know about the
national... help the hospices, though, does it?
Well, it does, because the government has given them extra money within the hospice movement to cover their bills.
Let's go to Tony in Hampshire. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Jeremy.
What do you think of what Labour's done?
Well, look, I think these are tough decisions. I really do. And a government that, in particularly a government, with a lot of women ministers and guys that have, been involved in lots of caring aspects of the community over the years. We see that. I think that, the previous government, I wasn't convinced at all that they was genuine in their attempts. Johnson bumbling around, always joking. We've got a serious team of a party here with people that I really think are having to make tough decisions, but we have to deal with some of the legacy of not just the Conservative Party over the last 14 years, which is appalling.
Can I just ask? Sorry, I'm only pausing you. I appreciate your argument is basically they're nice people, they'll do the right thing. By all accounts, the worst American president, well, before the current one, was the nicest guy, Jimmy Carter. Lovely guy. So nice people don't always run countries well. And you have to come back to the fact a lot of people are very angry. They feel they were promised things that were gone back on immediately after the election, Tony. Why would you not say before the election, we're going to take your winter fuel allowance if you elect us? Why would you not say that?
There definitely would have been some surprises that would have come up when Labour came into government, undoubtedly. Now, there's a net. I mean, I think that people would have wished. Many people spoke about people dying during the winter. They haven't. I think a lot of people would love to have had somebody die so that they could say, it didn't happen. There was a net that people would not fall through.
We've got to stop for our 10 o'clock ad break, Tony, but thank you for your call. The defence of Labour. I think defending Labour, their heart's in the right place, says Tony. Later we'll be asking if it's OK to bring dogs to work, but after the